Hey YouTube world, what's going on? Mark here from TST Industries. We are not at the office, we are not in the garage. We are here for a first ride review with our all new 2024 Kawasaki Ninja 500. This is the newest bike in the Kawasaki lineup with a not so new motor and a not so new frame. As you can imagine, they did use a lot of the same components or very similar components to the already proven and existing Ninja 400 platform that is now discontinued. They revamped it, they sent the bike to therapy, it took a look on the inside and made itself even better. So as you can see, Ninja 500 in its glory here. There are 6 model variations for you riders out there who are interested. We have a base model without ABS, a base model with ABS. We have a KRT edition, an SE edition, a KRT SE edition, and an SE 40th anniversary edition. And really the only difference out of all of those is what you get with the bike. You can see features like the key pass system, a seat cowl replacing the back seat, a taller windscreen, some frame sliders, and a few other odds and ends like a Type-C connection on those SE models. Starting off at $52,999 and going all the way up to $65,999 MSRP, you can also expect to pay anything over $7,500 for the absolute basic model of this bike and probably getting up close to $10,000 for the premium editions. Do not quote me on that. Obviously, that all depends on your local dealership and any fees they may impose on you. While also looking at the variation in models, you can imagine that there is a slight weight change with the different models and the different parts you get, starting off at 370 pounds and going all the way up to 382 pounds. The Ninja 500 does have a sliding scale like me during the holidays. 51 horsepower is what is reported from Kawasaki. We're working with a 451cc parallel twin, which is a slight step up from the base Ninja 400 motor, which we all know and love and is a proven platform. But 6 years after the Ninja 400 has been released, we now see this revamp of the Ninja 500 in a new styling. And my biggest question is, why is the 500 a thing? Well, CF Moto does have their 450 platform, which if you haven't already, please be sure to check out our first ride review on that, where I go over the ins and outs of that bike. And then of course, Aprilia did announce very quietly that there was an RS 457, and we haven't really heard much about that since. So I don't really think that this was a response to anything. I think that this was more Kawasaki taking something good and making it even better. And we first saw this motor used on the Kawasaki Eliminator, which is a cruiser style bike. And really it's the same motor with a little bit more displacement and a longer stroke. So you do get a little bit more power, is what everyone is claiming, in the mid-range and upper rev range. That is yet to be determined. We will be taking this to the dyno, so be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We will be doing a ton of content on this bike, including track days, some dyno footage, and much more. But looking at the bike from the outside, you can see it's a really nice color. Obviously with the KRT, you do get that green scheme that you know and love. And then there is a black model as well that is just pretty standard for what you get. And comparing it to the Ninja 400, as I mentioned, there were some changes made. We have a new dash, which is yet to be determined if I like it or not. There are some things that I know when Kawasaki is working on these new models and releasing them, they do like to drop a hint that something may become the standard for future models. And it is yet to be determined for some of these aesthetic changes, like the dash or the headlights, or even the taillight system, which is a completely new taillight and unlike anything Kawasaki has done in the past. But there are a lot of core features that we know and a lot of parts that we know are compatible in our catalog, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I am very excited to take this thing for the first ride review. I have now given you a lot of the brochure talking points. We're working with a 30.9-inch seat height, 3.7 gallon fuel capacity on all the models, 451cc parallel twin motor, and the weight range again is sliding. I think that just about does it. We've gotten a really good look at the aesthetics of this bike. I've given you some talking points to think about as I take you on this journey with this bike, and we kind of go over the feel of this new model that Kawasaki has released. So I hope you all stick around. We're gonna go ahead and suit up, take this thing around Daytona. We're in front of the famous Daytona International Speedway right now. And I hope that we can all, at the end of this video, give you some thoughts to think about and maybe entice you to go to your local Kawasaki dealership and take this new ride for a test ride. So let's go ahead, gear up, and we'll catch you on the road.
here we are on the first ride review of our all-new 2024 Ninja 500. A seemingly new model in Kawasaki's lineup for 2024. This 451cc parallel twin model is a new bike with a very familiar feeling. And I think that really does stem from the fact that a lot of components on this bike were derived from the very familiar and very formidable Ninja 400. And while Kawasaki did introduce this model for 2024, and they did seemingly use a lot of the components and technology from the Ninja 400, there are some subtle and not so subtle improvements and changes to this new Ninja 500 that give this bike a familiar feeling, but it's kind of like eating your favorite dish at a new restaurant. So at its core, very similar motor, if not the same. In fact, without cracking it open, we do know that it is the Ninja 400 motor with a little bit more displacement and longer stroke. Now, looking at that on a practical manner, that should result in a motor that still feels the same as the Ninja 400 with a little bit more grunt and gusto in the middle range. So we're going to see just how familiar and how similar this bike is to the Ninja 400. But I think before we do that, we need to take a few steps back, go back a couple decades, and look at how we got here from Kawasaki's perspective. So pre-2013, we all know that Kawasaki did have the Ninja 250, and that seemed to be kind of the staple bike for small displacement sport bikes in the world, or at least in our market. And then in 2013, Kawasaki introduced this beautifully styled Ninja 300. It took the world by storm. We saw it racing everywhere. Riders with advanced levels of experience and new beginner riders were all raving about this Ninja 300. And it held its rank for quite some time. A lot of aftermarket support backed it. Racing backed it. It seemed like everyone was happy. But then, in 2015, something happened. And one of the other big four of Japanese motorcycle manufacturers released a Yamaha R3. That's right, Yamaha decided to cut their losses, introduce a small displacement parallel twin bike, which was named the Yamaha YZF R3, a 321cc platform. And all of a sudden, everyone put down their Ninja 300s and gave it the Toy Story treatment. I don't want to play with you anymore. Picked up Buzz Lightyear in the R3, and well, the R3 kind of did take over. And that carried over to the track as well. We saw Yamaha introduce the Blue Crew Cup, which was a racing platform strictly with Yamaha R3s. Ninja 300s kind of died out as they were seemingly falling behind in technology and power, and the market shifted. And then in 2018, a year before Yamaha redesigned the R3 for its second iteration, Kawasaki punched back and offered a all-new Ninja 400. And that bike, well, it's kind of cemented itself in the motorcycle scene and in the industry. The Ninja 400 was a great bike, still is a great bike. It had its minor flaws, but as do all brand new models, there are just kinks that the manufacturers need to work out in order to really offer a robust bike. And the Ninja 400 did just that. It finally saw a slight improvement and change in 2023 with a new ECU and other small components, but it regained its title as the base bike for racing, small displacement twins, lightweight twins. Beginner riders loved it. I mean, it's a Kawasaki, what's not to love? Just like a Yamaha, right? And here we are now in 2024, a year after it seemingly went under the knife for some much needed improvements, and now there is an all-new Ninja 500. And now, I would like to preface all of this by saying, I do not think in any way, shape, or form that the Ninja 400 was only a response to the R3. I think that it that was many of the reasons why Kawasaki introduced the 400, but that wasn't the only reason. But here we are in 2024 and a Ninja 500 comes about. But we do know that this motor was used and first introduced on the Eliminator 400, which I guess now would be an Eliminator 500 or maybe the Eliminator 451, not 100% sure. But we do know that this motor was being tested and developed for another bike, their cruiser-inspired motorcycle in the Eliminator. And then we see this Ninja 500 unveiling some nice new bodywork. It looks like the headlight was a mix of the Z900 and ZX6R, having a late night at the bars. Got an updated front fascia, but the windscreen and such is still the same as the Ninja 400. We got some updated bodywork. Tail section is completely revamped. We have this new dash that, in my opinion, kind of lacks, but if we take a look at the price point of this bike, starting at $52.99 MSRP, it kind of makes sense. Now, I will say that if you look at some of the higher tiers, like the SE, the KRT SE, or the 40th SE, that price point moves up significantly. And I'm not sure that Kawasaki hit the nail on the head with respect to those models, just because of the price point. I mean, for the value that you're getting in the Ninja 500 at a close to $9,000, possibly $10,000 out the door price, you could be looking at the ZX4R, which is a very, very solid platform. Could also be looking at other manufacturers like the Suzuki GSX 8S or 8R, CF Moto 450 SS. So there are options out there, and I think that the market is going to have to really pay attention and lead Kawasaki down this road for the Ninja 500. But enough talking about the Lineage and where it kind of fits in the market. That's really for the market to decide. Let's take a look at this bike. So outside of the frame and the motor that we've already discussed, we do see the 41mm telescopic front forks similar to the Ninja 400. Internals are yet to be determined as far as if they will be a direct bolt-on component from the Ninja 400. But I do know that the front fork assembly, as far as how it mounts, the triple clamp, the axle, everything is very, very similar, if not identical, to the Ninja 400. Ergonomics, while we're touching on the steering and such, and the triple clamp, ergonomics are very apparent. It's not true sport bike feeling where you're hunched over the tank, but we do have true clip-ons. No shade to Suzuki, but Kawasaki did introduce, well, bring back these clip-ons on top of the triple clamp that are true clip-ons. You can adjust them, and if they are the same as the Ninja 400, we do know that there are countless aftermarket options available for fine-tuning what you want your rudder triangle to be. Rear sets are in a very comfortable position, not too far high up, not too far back, just right. And with the help of our rear set brackets that we offer, you can actually have a little bit more ability on the stock units. And of course, just as we said with the clip-ons, if they are the same as the Ninja 400, we do know that there are countless options available for changing out your footrests. And moving on from your feet to your seat, the seat on this bike feels very familiar as well. It is a very small seat. In fact, if you are riding this machine and you put your hand behind your back, you could literally feel the end of the tail or the end of the seat. So if you're a bigger rider, naturally you're probably not looking at a 451cc parallel twin sport bike, but that is something to note. You bigger riders out there, you may have trouble fitting on this bike properly or comfortably due to the stock equipment. But again, all that can change. You can change your clip-ons, you can adjust your rear sets. I'm sure there's aftermarket seats out there, or there will be. So all that stuff can really be catered to you and your riding style and your preference. Looking at the mirrors, they are mounted to the windscreen, and they're actually securing the windscreen to the bike. So if you ditch your mirrors, well, luckily we have some mirror block-offs that can keep your windscreen mounted to your front fairing, and all will be well with the world. But they're in a nice position, very far forward, gives you a wide range of view behind you and to the side, I really like them. Now the power delivery on this thing is very, very smooth, and I do think that it is because this model is derived from an already well-performing platform. But just because the power is smooth does not mean it's not underwhelming. And I think that's kind of where I fall. I do think that, you know, riding a stock Ninja 400 and then riding a ZX4RR, coming to this bike, it doesn't feel like enough of an improvement has been made for me personally that I would be the first one rushing to the dealership to put a deposit on this. But looking at the price point and the value, you could maybe teeter one way or the other. You don't get a lot of tech. The dash is very boring, but I do like that they put the buttons on the left side as opposed to on the bottom. Makes it a little bit easier when you're riding if you need to toggle through those functions. But you don't get a stop quick shifter, you don't get any sort of riding modes, power modes, no traction control, nothing like that. You do get an assist and slipper clutch and some Bluetooth connectivity, full tank of gas, good, burn some miles. But the power delivery is very, very smooth, and shifting feels buttery smooth. In fact, I have not yet found a situation where I have received any false readings or false neutrals, kicking me out of gear, putting me in another gear, nothing like that. And the reason I bring that up is because, well, we do know that for the Ninja 400, that was a big complaint that a lot of riders had. It's kicking me out of gear, it's kicking me into a different gear, it's getting false neutrals. And we will really test that when we take this thing onto the track and really push it to its limits that we feel comfortable with. But we do know that on this particular model right now, for just everyday riding on the street, the shifts are buttery smooth, the power feels smooth. I do feel a little bit more mid-range grunt, and in fact, when we go on the highway, I will show you that, and I can kind of show you guys right now, but even in 6th gear, which is its tallest gear, I'm at about 4,000 RPMs, and if I just crack this thing open, you do see that it does want to get up and go, and I think that that is a testament to the R&D that they put back into this model and released for the reintroduction of this base platform. Now, we've gone over power, but how can you stop all that power? Or lack of? Well, the braking system on this does leave a lot to be desired. With a single front rotor brake system, you don't really get too much of a bite. It's enough to stop you, and I think it's adequate for the 90% of riders out there who are going to take this thing on the street. But for you track goers out there, I can envision that a Brembo master cylinder change is in your near future, or any other braking components for that matter. But that wouldn't surprise me if that is one of the big things that people do change about this model. The braking just seems a little soft, but no real complaints. Again, if you look at the value, the budget of this bike, you kind of get what you pay for. And obviously with all the color options and the different model options, there kind of is a seat for everyone out there. So let us know your thoughts. I mean, are you a fan of the Ninja 500 and all its different offerings, or are you leaning more towards getting a different bike like a ZX6R, ZX4RR, or any other models out there? You know, we've gone over power, we've gone over the braking components, we've gone over the ergonomics and the aesthetics. And for me, the biggest talking point that I think we can bring to the table is the value of this bike, and I've touched on it a few times already. But I think that's where this bike is going to land for me, is the value of this bike. And the value you get with this bike is a reliable platform with a lot of aftermarket support and the reliability of it being a Kawasaki. And that's kind of where the buck stops for that. That's kind of where the buck stops for value on this model, because you do now have competitors in this small displacement market that are pushing out really, really good products, and the leverage that Kawasaki seemingly has over them, and Yamaha as well, is that they have the reliability and the backing of that big manufacturer platform. You know, there is the CF Moto 450 SS, which we did do a first ride review, and if you haven't already, be sure to check that out. But in that video, I did discuss that that bike, in my opinion, was the best 400 style bike at the time. However, that was before this 500 was released. So where do I stand with that? To be determined. I guess I'll have to take both out on the same day and really give them a grunt. But I have a very sneaking suspicion that I already know where my answer would end. And the CF Moto 450 SS, SR, NK isn't the only 400 parallel twin platform that is in existence now. We also saw in late 2023 that Aprilia announced this RS 457, and well, I'm a big fan of Aprilia looks, but we all know that the availability of parts of OEM components when things need to be refreshed, serviced, or just outright changed can be non-existent. And that's kind of where that, again, that big backing of being a Kawasaki model really brings its value. So we want to get your thoughts. After we're done here, we are going to take this thing to the dyno, get some stock dyno readings. We will also be taking it to the track. And I have to say, I've been doing a couple first ride reviews as of recently. You know, we did the ZX4R, the GSX 8S, the GSX 8R, the 450 SS. And the one thing we haven't been able to do with a lot of those models yet is take it to the track. So we will be taking this thing to the track, turning some laps, and we will have Bart guide you through that, give you his unfiltered opinions on this platform. We also obviously plan on doing a ton of the installation videos, you know, and love all that normal stuff. But we want to get your thoughts. What do you think about this Ninja 500? Before we head back to the shop, we're going to go ahead and actually take it out onto the highway. And I'm going to let you know all my thoughts on how this thing feels when you're riding at higher speeds in some more unforgiving traffic. I will tell you that today is a pretty brisk day here in Florida, and it's very windy. So I have my theory that a couple minutes into that, I will be throwing my fist into the sky and cursing Kawasaki for allowing riders to ride these bikes. But we'll see. Maybe I'm proven wrong. I do know that the suspension, it does feel very familiar. It's planted. It could be better, but it's fairly planted, and you get a lot of feedback from the ground. And this motor is very, very thumpy. So, you know, I'm very light on the throttle, but I am feeling vibrations all up my wrist, through my palms, into my wrist, up my arm, and into my torso. And I would be curious to see how I feel on this, how I feel after riding this bike for, you know, an hour or two. I have a very funny feeling that my hand would just be vibrating, and I would probably feel a little discomfort. But that's to be determined. Only time will tell on that. So we're really excited. This is a pretty solid platform. I think if you're in the new bike market and you have a few options to look at in the sub 500cc range, this might be at the top of your list in pair with, you know, maybe a used 400 or a CF Moto 450 SS, or even like the CBR offerings or the R3. But I don't know, me personally, I don't know that if I was a Ninja 400 owner, I would feel comfortable upgrading to this new platform, only because I don't feel like there's enough of a difference or enough of an improvement. I mean, at the end of the day, you could potentially just get a Ninja 500 motor and swap it into a 400 frame if you already have a Ninja 400, and that would probably give you the feel of a Ninja 500 with the platform you already know, love, and own. So there's always an option on that front too. All that to say, we are now going to hop on the highway in just a few. We're going to really give this thing the beans, see how it handles with higher winds and higher speed traffic. I really do like this bike so far. I do think that there are some things that I've been spoiled with on some of our other recent first ride reviews, like quick shifters and adjustable levers and riding modes and things like that that aren't present on this bike, so I won't take off points for that. But I will say that, again, at those higher price points of some of the models that they offer for the 500, like the SE, the KRT SE and the 40th SE, you get very close to some of those other models in price that have more tech or more power or better feel, better features. So it's definitely something to consider as you're looking at this Ninja 500, whether you're a new rider or an advanced rider. So as I mentioned, it is a very gusty day today here in Central Florida. It's a little brisk outside. I think it's a high of like 68, 66. So it's a little cool, a little windy. And even with that in mind, right now, going 80 miles an hour in 6th gear, the bike still feels very planted. Now, that's with me sitting up. If I tuck down, I do get a lot more aerodynamics. And I would like to mention, if you get the SE models, you do have a taller windscreen. So that may be the taller windscreen that you would get from the factory would assumingly provide a lot more wind deflection and aerodynamics when riding. So that's something to note. Obviously, with the aftermarket support of companies like Zero Gravity Racing, we do note that the Ninja 400 windscreens work on this bike. So a simple windscreen swap can potentially save you a couple thousand than having to get the more premier model with all the bells and whistles already included. But even so, I mean, I'm riding, I just passed a medium-sized truck and I'm behind this big rig right now. The wind is pushing me around just slightly, but it's not like overwhelming. I don't feel underpowered or anything like that in this environment. It does still have the get up and go, and if I can pass these trucks, we can do a little pool and just see how peppy this new machine is. But my gut feeling is telling me that this bike is actually very formidable. Major shout out to Kawasaki for taking something good and making it seemingly better. Only time will tell how this Ninja 500 stacks up and how the market receives it. But I will tell you right now, from riding this machine all day, and especially right now taking it on the highway at higher speeds, we're getting some crazy wind gusts. This bike does feel very planted, very strong in its atmosphere, and I'm very excited to take this thing to the track and see how it stacks up in that world. But we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna try and pass these trucks and get a little pool. Nothing too crazy. Obviously ride within your legal limits and within the local laws. Oh yeah, now I'm feeling it. Woo! This wind is fierce today. Let's go ahead and get over. No trucks here. We're gonna try and slow down just a bit. Give the truck behind me some breathing room. Alright, so right now I'm in 6th gear, about 7,000 RPMs, going about 77 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and talk just a little bit. Past this truck. Woo! That is unsettling. Alright, so now let's go ahead. We're actually going to slow down to about 60 if I can. Let me get over this bridge. Alright, so we're going to slow down to about 60. We're going to put it in 5th gear. 65. 3, 2, 1, go. That's actually not too bad. It does have a little bit more pep, a little bit more power in that mid-rev range. I'm a fan of how this feels so far, but again, it's a small displacement bike at the end of the day. So I think if you go into this experience with the Ninja 500, understanding what you're getting, I don't think you'll be disappointed. But if you're expecting anything more than a slightly peppier Ninja 500, you will be disappointed. So let's go ahead. We're going to wrap this up, head back to the shop now, give you our final thoughts, and a little look at what's to come. So stick around.
All right, so after riding this bike in this beautiful Florida weather, I can safely say that without a doubt, this is absolutely a motorcycle, and a pretty good one at that. But all jokes aside, this all-new 2024 Ninja 500 is a bike with a familiar face and a familiar feeling, but with some upgraded features and new aesthetics that really do blend together and bring a very solid value to the motorcycle industry. Especially when you look at the bare bones offering of this bike with the non-ABS version, you really do have a bike that is beginner bike friendly while also entertaining enough for advanced level riders and even intermediate level riders who want something with zero tech, bare bones, that they have a lot of wiggle room to upgrade. I think that this hits the nail on the head in that regard, but as I mentioned during the first ride review, I'm not sure if the higher tier levels of this bike, in the SE, the 40th SE and the KRT SE, are necessarily bikes that are going to sell well just because of the price that those bikes are out the door. You really do start to get into the realm of the ZX6R, ZX4R, R7, Ninja 650, GSX 8S and 8R. There's a ton of competition once you start getting into that high $8,000 to $9,000, even $10,000 range. So I'm very curious to see where the market takes it, but at the end of the day, this bike is one that packs a punch, especially with the upgraded displacement and the longer stroke. You can really feel it in the rev range without it feeling overwhelming. So we're excited to see where this bike goes. Will it last as long as the Ninja 300 and the Ninja 400 respectively? Or will we see a time very soon where Kawasaki actually rolls back the displacement and goes back down to a Ninja 400 or a 300? Only time will tell, and the market, of course, is in control of that. So leave your comments down below. We'd love to hear what you think about the all-new Ninja 500. Are you sold on it? Still on the fence? Are you a 400 owner hoping to upgrade to a 500? And has this changed your mind? Let us know. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on to stay up to date with all the new and exciting videos we've got going on, especially with this bike. We've got track content, dyno footage, a bunch of content already planned, new products being installed, installation videos to come. There is so much to break down with this Ninja 500, so we hope you stick along for the journey. Be sure to visit our website, tstindustries.com, for all of your Ninja 500 parts and any other bike that may be in your garage. Link to that is in the description below. And lastly, don't forget to stop by our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all username TST Industries. For now, this has been Mark in the TST Garage. You all ride safe. We'll catch you next time.